Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO. Very busy show today. On the phones, Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Chad. Good morning.
There's a lot happening. We'll start here in the state of Texas. A pretty big race. Texas House District 28. A special election there. An election that, Matt, it's gotten a lot of Democrat attention in that race.
Yeah, this is a suburban Houston, Texas House seat that was held by John Zerwas, the Appropriations Committee chair in the House, that he resigned and had a special election first round where a Democrat finished first. There were several Republican candidates running, and second place was won by the Republican. I think the total share of the vote that went to the Republican candidates was something like 61%. So anyway, there's a runoff today. I'll be honest with you, Chad. You know, I know the winning side is going to act like this is the most important win in the history of politics. I mean, I don't know what this special really tells us. It's in one district. It's 9.5 or 10 months before the election. The turnout is going to be a quarter or at best a half of what it'll be in November. In November, you're going to have the presidential race at the top of the ticket, the U.S. Senate race, all the other action up ballot. So, yeah, I mean, I'll be absolutely shocked if Republicans lose tonight. And I do think the one way this matters is if Democrats win this seat, it's going to play into the sales pitch they've been making that we can win Texas, we can flip seats, we can win the Texas House majority, we can maybe even win the presidential race there. I mean, I think that's a real leap, but I think you'll see probably more enthusiasm and more investment in Texas on behalf of Democrats if they are able to win. I don't think they will. I mean, I think the analysis of the early vote shows Republicans are in good shape with probably at least a 10% lead, and generally Republicans do better on Election Day than they do during the early vote. So we'll see how it goes. I suspect you'll see an 8 or 10 point win by the Republican candidate Gary Gates tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Matt, let's take a look at the national scene. Of course, it's all impeachment all the time right now. And how do you feel the impeachment trial is going for the president?
Well, look, I think it's going fine. I don't think there have been any, I don't think it's changed the dynamic. I will say, if you'd asked me if we'd done this segment on Friday, if you said, Matt, are there going to be witnesses, I would have wagered a pretty solid amount of money there weren't going to be additional witnesses. I do think the Bolton revelations and the leak associated with the first draft of his book has changed the dynamic a little bit. And so I do think now that he's going to have to participate in some fashion, not because I think it's necessary, but because I think there are at least 4 Republican senators who are going to require it. Now, whether that's a closed deposition in a classified setting, whether that's an open hearing. I saw there was a really interesting proposal made this morning by Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma, that Lindsey Graham has endorsed, which would basically allow senators on both sides to read the manuscript in a classified setting. That would be one way to get around requiring Bolton to testify. You could read the book itself, which is, of course, causing all this given the leak that occurred over the weekend. So that said, look, I don't think Bolton's testimony is going to change the dynamic on the ultimate vote. But I do think now he's going to have to participate in some level whether it's reading the manuscripts in a classified setting or actually testifying under oath. I think we'll know that on Friday. That's when the witness vote is likely to occur. So, yeah, I mean, keep one other thing in mind. If they were to call him as a witness, the White House would almost surely make an executive privilege claim. That would get tied up in the courts. Even if it were expedited, you'd be talking about weeks, but probably more like a month or 2 months. And the Senate cannot simply set impeachment aside and go back to doing other things.
Right.
The rules require them to stay on impeachment until it's dispensed with. So they would literally be in a quorum call doing absolutely nothing, waiting for the courts to rule on Bolton for weeks on end. And I don't think that's something that Republican senators want. They want to use this time to confirm judges. They've got other things to pass, prescription drugs, infrastructure, a highway bill, all kinds of things that they'd rather be doing.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say there are witnesses called, and from what it sounds like, if if Bolton's going to be called as a witness and not just reading his book, then the Republicans are going to get Hunter Biden, and this is going to go on for a while. If it gets tied up in the courts, what happens with Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Amy Klobuchar? Do they get to go out and campaign, or do they have to stay in D.C.?
That's a great question, and it's honestly one I've not really contemplated, and I don't know what the rules are. I mean, if they are quite literally in a quorum call, I don't know that senators necessarily have to remain at their desks if they're not doing anything.
Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they were truly in basically a recess or kind of a in-session recess, just basically a break. It wouldn't surprise me if those Democratic senators left and went and campaigned. I mean, they would be able to schedule that testimony in advance, several days, so they could come back for that. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to tie them up. I could be wrong about that, but I really don't think it would tie them up if they literally weren't doing anything. The issue is if you're hearing open arguments or you're answering questions from senators or you're taking testimony or you're casting votes, you got to be there. If you're not doing anything, I think that's a different thing. It would be hard to argue those senators are not holding up their end of the bargain. But you're right. I mean, I do think witness reciprocity is a pretty central principle for Republican senators, and you only need 51 votes, right? 51 votes can force anyone to be a witness. Now, if Bolton is all the Democrats are going to get, then that would mean Republicans will only get one person. And so I don't know whether they choose Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the whistleblower, someone else. I don't know kind of what the ultimate decision would be. My guess is maybe Hunter Biden, based on what happened yesterday with the detailed information about Burisma and Hunter's activities. So, yeah, I mean, we will see where this goes. It's just going to get cleared up by Friday, but there's a number of directions this thing can go right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We won't visit with you until after the Iowa caucuses because they're on Monday. So what do you think happens, Matt? What do you think happens Monday?
Yeah, I mean, I would love, I like making predictions. I would love to make a bold prediction here right now with you. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where someone other than Biden or Sanders wins Iowa. I don't think Buttigieg is going to win. I think he's kind of been coming back to earth. And while there's been a lot of talk about Warren's organization, it's pretty clear that Sanders has overtaken Warren in Iowa. So, I'm expecting those two to be the top two, in which case the odds that they ultimately become the final two candidates to be the nominee, I think, is pretty high. So to me, it's less important who, quote, wins and what the actual numbers are. And what's more important is, does Sanders finish ahead of Warren and does Biden finish ahead of Buttigieg? And if so, does it basically sort of put us sort of the beginning of the end of those two candidates, Buttigieg and Warren, having a real path to the nomination. So, look, I see. It feels to me like Sanders may win Iowa.
Yeah.
If I had to bet, the polling is all over the place. Sanders has been ahead in Iowa in recent polls, but so has Biden. Caucuses are really hard to kind of get a beat on because it's one night, and so people say they're going to show up, but they end up not showing up for one reason or another. You've got goofy rules where you can vote unaligned on the first ballot and see who's done well, and then vote on the second ballot. If you vote for someone who does not have 15% support at the caucus location you're at, they are forced to vote for someone else who does. So second choice voting is really important as well. So I'm sorry to belabor the point, but it is just very complicated. And so it feels to me like Bernie Sanders may win Iowa. If he does that, he'll be very hard to beat in New Hampshire as well. And it'll be really hard for Democrats to stop Sanders from becoming the nominee. I saw a story last night that Democratic operators are considering launching a Stop Bernie effort. It may be too late. If he wins Iowa on Monday, he may have a boost of enthusiasm and momentum behind him that will make him very hard to stop.
Before I let you go, and I know it's extremely early to even talk about this, but it seems like there are two camps of Republicans on the Bernie issue.
Yeah.
Either Bernie would be a great thing for the Republicans and Trump would easily defeat Bernie, or Bernie has so much authenticity and has so much ground support that he could pose a real problem for Trump. Which category do you lean towards?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that because I've thought about this quite a bit, and I really am in that first camp. I think Bernie is he's interesting. He's got a clear message. He creates enthusiasm on the left. He's consistent. He performs at a reasonably high level all the time, doesn't create problems for himself or have mistakes. It's just, number one, really hard for me to see the Democratic Party fully getting behind him. But more so, I just think Trump is going to be able to describe him he's going to call whoever the nominee is a socialist. In Sanders' case, he won't deny it. I mean, to me, Sanders' proposals are so far outside the mainstream, it would give Trump a tremendous opportunity to win back the suburbs. So, look, I mean, I don't necessarily want Sanders to be the nominee because I wouldn't want anyone that insane to be that close to the presidency. But if you're hoping that Trump has a big and decisive victory in November, Sanders or Warren, to me, are the two best candidates to give Trump that path. So, look, I mean, I may come to regret all that, but because we'll see how Sanders does if he's a nominee. I think at the end of the day, they're going to prevent him from being the nominee one way or the other.
All right, Matt, tell people how they can sign up for your newsletter and also about your podcast.
Yeah, the newsletter in the morning, which 3,000 Texans receive, including Chad, is called Must Read Texas. You can sign up at mustreadtexas.com for a free one-week trial. We take all the top news, put it in one clean, easy-to-read email, and delivered by 9 a.m. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. It's available on the iTunes Store, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on Spotify. The most recent episode is with former Congressman Darrell Issa of California, who is running for another congressional seat this year.
All right, very good. Matt, as always, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chad. Take care.
All right, that's Matt Mackowiak, Republican strategist